Good morning, everyone. This is Kyle, and I'll be presenting today's webinar. In today's basic session, I will be covering the registration process, how to process a locate request with examples, and actions you can take on a ticket once it's in the system. To register for an account, you'll need to click the Sign Up button located at the bottom of the page. Here, you'll be able to enter your excavator details, starting with your first and last name, the company you are submitting the request for, and your job position. If you need help while submitting your request, each section has an orange box with a question mark in it. Clicking on this will open up a YouTube video allowing you to review what is requested in each individual section. When you click on each field, a tooltip will also pop up, telling you exactly what is required, as well if the field is required or optional. Any required fields will need to be completed, however optionals can be left empty. To start, I'll enter my first name in the first name field, my last name in the last name field, and the organization that I represent within the company field. If you're a homeowner, you can enter homeowner in this field, as the tooltip indicates on the right-hand side. In the job position field, you can enter your position within the company you're representing. For me, I'll enter contact center support. However, this is our first optional field, and if you don't feel comfortable entering this information, you don't need to provide it. Next, we get to our primary phone number field. This is the phone number that we would use to contact you if we had any questions or concerns regarding your request, or the locators would use to follow up. Note that there is a particular format we're looking for with spaces or dashes or periods between each set of characters. Our mobile number functions the exact same, however, it is an optional field, so if you feel it's not required, you do not need to enter it. Next is your email address. This is the email that you would receive your confirmation email from us, as well as any member responses that are sent via email. We'll also ask that you confirm your email address to ensure that we have the correct email on file. If your email is incorrect, that could result in delayed responses or not receiving responses entirely. Next is our industry field. This is where you'll enter the general type of work that you do. If you are an electrical contractor who does electrical services, select electrical contractor. If you're a utility company, select utility company. Homeowners can select the homeowner option. Select the one that best applies to you and your organization. If you feel that none of the options apply, you can select general contractor instead. Next is our user type, and there are 3 types of users. Contractors are anyone doing the work for someone else, be that a homeowner or subcontractor. Homeowners are homeowners, someone doing the work for themselves on their own private property. Lastly, members are utility companies who have their services registered in our system. An example of a member company is ATCO Gas, Manitoba Hydro, or Sask Energy. An example of a utility company that is not a member would be Shaw Cable. They would fall under contractor for our purposes. Next are our login details, starting with your username. This is the information you'll use to get into your online account. When you click in this field, it will automatically parse to your email address. However, you do not need to use your email address as your username. If you need multiple accounts associated with the same email address, or want something a little shorter as your username, you can adjust that at this time. After you've entered your username, you'll need to set a password. This needs to be a minimum of 8 characters and must contain 1 lowercase and 1 uppercase letter. An example of a password that would fit is password with a capital P. If you didn't include the capital P, however, it would not meet our minimum requirements. I'm going to go ahead and enter a password now, and then we get to confirm password, where I'll enter the same password again. Next, we have our security question. This is what we would use to get you back into your online account if you were locked out of it for any reason. Select the question that's easiest for you to remember or you feel is most applicable. I'll select firstborn because that's easy for me, and I'll enter NA. Lastly, we have our miscellaneous section, where you can opt in for our newsletter if you'd like to find out about changes to the website or service. However, this is not required. Lastly, you'll need to agree to our terms and conditions, which can be reviewed by clicking on the link and agreed to by selecting the checkbox. Lastly, you'll need to complete a CAPTCHA to confirm you're not a robot, and then you'll be able to click the Sign Up button to finalize your registration. Once you've finalized your registration, you'll receive a verification email that you'll need to follow the link in to finalize the creation of your account. I've already created an account with these details, so I'm going to go ahead and log in with them now. Once you log in, you'll be brought to the console page, which has a number of options that we'll be going through in this presentation. To start, on the left-hand side, we have your account details that you would have just registered under. You'll also find your customer ID number in this field. If you need to give us a call, this ID number will pull up your account for the agent that is currently assisting you. In the top right, we have Log Out, Account, which we'll talk about now. This is where you can change any of the account details you've just registered under. Once you've made any changes that you need to make, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to save those changes. The last option, Settings, we'll come back to a little later. For now, let's jump into a brand new ticket by clicking the New Ticket button. To start, you'll need to select the province or territory that you're doing the work within. Our website handles multiple provinces, so there's no need to create an account for Alberta, BC, Manitoba, or Saskatchewan. One account fits all. For the first example, I'll select Alberta. Next, we get to our ticket type, and this is the driving factor of your ticket. It impacts the maximum size you are allowed to include on your request. To start, we have a regular ticket, which has a maximum size limit of 1,000 square meters. This likely will be used for things like homeowners who are building a fence or a deck in their backyard, or perhaps utility companies installing a single power pole, or municipalities installing things like stop signs. Next, we have project tickets, which have a minimum size limit of 1,000 square meters, but have two varying maximum size limits depending on the area you're working within. Inside cities or towns, that's 60,000 square meters, and in rural areas, that's 800,000 square meters. The last of our excavation ticket types is large project tickets. These also have a minimum size limit that is the same as the maximum of a project ticket, but then in cities or towns, they go up to 800,000 square meters, or in rural areas, 4.2 squared kilometers, which is roughly 6 legal land descriptions. Lastly, we have planning and design tickets, which are for informational purposes only. Typically, the utility owners will send you schematics or drawings of where their utilities are located so you can plan your work accordingly. Planning and design tickets are not for excavation purposes, and a new ticket would need to be submitted prior to any excavation starting. An added note for planning and design requests is that the utility owners request 10 business days to provide a response, as opposed to the 3 for regular or project tickets, or 5 for large project tickets. Next, we have our type of work field. This is where you'll want to select the general type of work that you'll be completing. If you're a construction company building a new home, your type of work will likely be construction. If you're a utility company, perhaps ATCO Gas, chances are you'll select gas as your type of work. Same thing for any municipalities that have water services that they are doing repairs on, or other types of water work. Once you've selected your type of work, the activity you select will actually change based on that type of work. The activity will be related to construction in this instance, with things like decks, fencing, pools, mailboxes, etc. If we were to change our type of work to gas, the activities available to us would also change. It would be things like service repairs, service installs, main repairs, and other gas type related works. As our system uses a drop-down menu, not all options will be available. If you feel your activity isn't included, you can select the other option and specify this information a little bit later on into the request. For this example, we're doing a fence for a homeowner, so we'll switch our activity over to fencing before we continue. Next is our excavation method. This is how you'll be completing the work. Select which option applies best to your situation, and if you have multiple types of excavation, you'll be able to specify that information later on in the request, along with your activity if you selected other. For this example, we'll be augering in our post holes for the fence, so we're going to select augering as our excavation method. Next is our depth. You'll want to select the option that applies to the deepest point you'll be excavating to. If you'll be digging to 2 feet in one area, but 8 feet in another, you'll want to make sure that you indicate 8 feet as your depth, or 1 to 3 meters. For this example, we'll be going about 3.5 feet for the post holes, so we'll leave it as 1 to 3 meters for our depth. The next field we come to is our job start date. As I mentioned earlier, the utility owners require a minimum of 3 full business days to respond to any regular or project tickets, and 5 full business days to respond to any large project tickets. When you select the calendar, you'll be able to select the next available date after those 3 full business days, or 5 full business days in the instance of large project tickets. For this example, as it's May 12th, today doesn't count. Friday would be our first business day. Saturday and Sunday don't count as business days. Monday would be our second business day. Tuesday would be our third business day, meaning that the next available date we could select to start our work would be the 18th. Next is our user reference. If you have any sort of internal job number or tracking separate from our internal ticket numbers, you can enter this information in the user reference field. This information is searchable in your ticket history, so if you need to find a specific ticket and don't have the ticket number, searching by a user reference is a valid option. I'm going to go ahead and enter AB for this one, and I'll show this feature off a little bit later on in the presentation. Next, we have our working on behalf of. This is who you are doing the work for. If you're doing the work for a homeowner as a contractor, chances are you're going to select private. If you're doing the work for the local government, whether that be the county or municipality, you'd select local government. And if you're a utility company doing the work for yourselves, well, then that's going to fall underneath utility. This drop-down menu actually impacts the utility authority field that's coming up next. The option that you select in your working on behalf of will actually change the options available next. Like our activity field, we'll want to select the option under utility authority that best applies to who we're doing the work for. Next, we have our on-site contact. By default, you are the primary contact on your request. As you entered your account information, that phone number and that email are where you will receive your responses. If you are not the best point of contact, this is your opportunity to include somebody else. In their on-site contact name field, we'll need their, at minimum, first name, but last name is also helpful. This field is optional, however, so if you are the primary point of contact, you can leave it blank like I'll do now. Next, we have our property types, public and private. You'll need to select at least one option in these two fields, but you can choose to leave one as please select as long as you've selected an option from the other corresponding field. For our public property, we're going to either leave this as please select or select none, because for this example, we're building a fence on a homeowner's private property. For private property, we'll need to select what type of property we're doing the work on. For our purposes, any single-family home or duplex is considered residential, while anything larger than a duplex, so triplexes, fourplexes, apartment buildings, would all fall underneath commercial for our purposes. For this example, again, we're doing a fence for a homeowner on their private property, and we're going to go ahead and select residential. The last field of the ticket details section is the area pre-marked. Have you gone out and pre-marked your dig site with either paint, white stakes, or flags? If you have, select yes. If you haven't, select no. It's not a requirement by us that you pre-mark your site. However, some locators or utility companies may request that you do so prior to them arriving. I haven't marked my site, so I'm going to select no, and then we can move on. Once we've gotten to the next page, we'll need to do step 1, search for our dig site location. It's important to remember that searching for your dig site isn't necessarily the exact location where you're doing the work. It's simply to have our map pull up that general area. Our service uses Google Maps, so if you're working in an area that doesn't exist on Google yet, chances are that address won't exist in our system either. There are multiple different types of searches. First is our street or address search. If you enter a roadway or civic address in the street field, the map will do its best to find that location. Next, we have intersection. If you enter 2 intersecting roadways, one in the first street, one in the second street, town or city that those roads fall within, the map will do its best to find that intersection if it exists on Google Maps. Our third search type is legal land description grid. Legal land descriptions are a grid reference for anywhere in the prairies. These do have particular formatting, and if you click on the grid reference field, you'll be able to see that. Our last search type is XY or GPS coordinates, and there's multiple different formats that we accept, including Latin long, NAD83, or UTM. Typically, people will provide latitude and longitude, which can be acquired through your cell phone or by going on Google Maps and finding the location you're doing the work at. Note that this is formatted longitude and latitude. If you enter your latitude in the first box and your longitude in the second box, you'll end up in the ocean. For this first example, we're doing a homeowner's fence, so we're going to select street as our search type and enter the address that we're doing the work at. The address I have is 1636 15th Avenue Southwest here in Calgary. Once we've entered our address, we can click search and the map will do its best to find that location. This address is an older one and it does exist on Google, so our mapping software finds it without any issues. Before we move on too far, let's take a second to talk about the various mapping tools that are available to you once you get to step 2, draw your dig site. Our first mapping tool is the pan tool, located at the top left of the map. With this tool selected, if you left click and drag on the map, you'll be able to move it around to a different location. If your search doesn't bring you to the correct spot, you can move the map to the correct location if you know where it is. Since we're doing work at that homeowner's house, we'll move the map back over to there, and then we'll talk about the other mapping tools. Next, we have our zoom in and zoom out buttons. Clicking on these allow you to zoom the map in or zoom the map out if you're unable to see your entire work area. The bars in between the zoom in and zoom out buttons are the corresponding zoom levels, and if you need to jump to a further away view or a closer view, you can click on these bars to do so quickly. The next tool that we have is our polygon tool. This is the tool you use to draw your work area. With this tool selected, a red dot will follow your mouse. Wherever you click on the map, you'll actually drop a point, and the red line will start to follow your mouse as you move it around. Using this tool, you'll want to trace the outline of your work area. For this homeowner, we're just doing a fence in their backyard, so we'll draw a square around that now. Any utility owners that cross through this red box that are members of our service will be automatically notified. If there's a utility owner in the front yard, they wouldn't be included as they do not cross through the red shaded area. As I mentioned when we were talking about ticket types, each ticket does have a maximum size limit, and this is included under step 2, draw your dig site. We can see that we're currently dealing with a 1,000 meter square work area, and if you take a look at the bottom of the map, you can actually see a measurement field that shows the current area we have highlighted. We have 300 meters squared, which is about a third of our maximum work area for the ticket type we currently have selected. I'm going to quickly redraw the map that we have here and then show off the edit tool, which allows you to change a polygon you've already put down on the map. Once you've clicked on this tool, you can select your polygon and it'll change to a blue color. The points you've placed will change to red dots, which can be clicked on and dragged to adjust the polygon. Additionally, each point will have a shaded red spot in between it as well. These can also be clicked on to add additional vertices if you want to refine your work area. For this homeowner, we're just fencing along the sides of their house and in the backyard, so we've got quite a large area included on this that we're not actually working within. If we wanted to, we could refine it to just include the fence line, as that's the only area that we're working within, and any utility owners that cross through that shape, regardless of where it's located, will still be notified. Our second last tool is the measurement tool. This allows you to measure a distance from a point. When you left click, a gray line will start following your mouse, and the measurement at the bottom of the screen will increase or decrease based on how far away your mouse is from that initial starting point. If you know that you're working 5 meters from a roadway or 10 meters from a specific landmark, this is how you can determine where that exact area is located. The last function available while you're completing your map is the map layers. This allows you to change the Google imagery that you're currently viewing, or add additional overlays like legal land description grids, river lots in Saskatchewan, or city and town boundaries to the map to help visualize your work area. The last step is step 3, confirm your dig site. This is where you'll want to enter the information for where your work is taking place. If you were unable to search for the physical address, or the map was unable to find it, this is where you will specify your exact work area. For us, Google found this address and it put in the information for us, so we don't need to do anything other than add the nearest cross street. We can see on the map that 16th Street Southwest is the nearest intersecting roadway, so I'm going to go ahead and enter that now. However, this is an optional field, so if you don't have this information or can't see it on the map, it's not required. Our last field is the remarks field. This is where you can enter any additional information you weren't able to enter elsewhere on the request. If you have multiple types of work you're completing, multiple excavation methods, additional on-site contacts, or other information related to your excavation, it should be entered in this box. Additionally, you should provide a physical work area description. For this example, we'd probably just put in backyard or side and rear fence lines. Once you've added any additional details, you can scroll down and click the Submit button to send your request off, which will automatically notify utility owners that cross through the polygon you've drawn. After submitting your request, you'll receive your ticket summary page. In the top left-hand corner, you'll have some details regarding your request. The first is your 11-digit ticket number, 2022-200-0014 in this instance. You'll also have the time and date the ticket was created. However, keep in mind that this is an PST. Next is your priority, and if you are doing a regular project or large project ticket, this will always be normal. How the ticket was created, by web, since you're using our online web service, and the email address that your confirmation email was sent to. Below the request details, we have your ticket details, which is the information you've entered on the request itself. Towards the middle of the page, we have the utility list, or the affected utility owners that are being notified. For this example, we only have NMAX in the area. However, this is our test environment, and if you were to submit a request for this address, you'd likely have several other utility owners being included. Let's do another quick example. This time we'll do a project ticket, and this one's going to be within Saskatchewan. To start, we'll change our province over from Alberta to Saskatchewan. We'll change our ticket type from regular to project. Our type of work for this example will be road construction, so under type of work we'll select road work. We'll be resurfacing the road, so we'll select that as our activity. Next, we have our excavation method, and we'll be bringing in heavy machinery for the work, so we'll select mechanical excavation. For the depth, we're going about 2.5 feet, so 0.3 to 1 meters, and we want to get started as soon as possible. Again, using a user reference, I'll put SK for this. We're working on behalf of the county, so we'll select local government on our working behalf of, and then we can specify MD or county in our utility authority. For this one, I'm the best point of contact again, so I'm going to go ahead and leave my on-site contact name and number blank. Select road and sidewalk for my public property because we're working in the road allowance. And then for private property, I can leave it as please select. The area has been pre-marked, so I've selected yes, and we'll proceed. For this example, we're going to use an LLD search since we're working in a rural area, and I'll enter the legal land description now. As I mentioned earlier, legal land descriptions do have a particular format they need to be entered in. They need to contain 2 characters in every set, as well as dashes between each one. If you're missing any of the dashes, or if you enter 6 instead of 06 in this example, you'll receive an error message instead of the map pulling up the correct area. Once we click search, the map will bring us to the center of that legal land description. From here, we can zoom out so that we can see the full scope of our work area. From here, we'll also use our map layers to turn on the legal land description grid so we can see the full boundaries of our work area, since we know we're working to the edge of the legal land description. This overlay not only labels the legal land description, but also shows you their boundaries. At this point, we'll select our polygon tool and we'll trace the outline of our work area, which is Highway 47 through multiple quarter sections. It's important to note that your mapped area doesn't just need to be within your search area. We've searched the southeast of 28, but we're also going to be working within the southwest of 29, and I've included that on the same request. Once we get to our final point, we double click to finalize the map, and we can move on. Finally, we get to step 3, confirm our dig site. Since we're working along Highway 47, we'll go ahead and enter that in our street field. This location is in a rural area, it's outside of cities or towns, so just like the tooltip says, we can go ahead and enter rural. I'll just zoom out real quick to show you that the nearest town or city is quite far away, and then enter that information. For our province and territory, this is in Saskatchewan, which we'll select from the drop-down, and then we get to our nearest cross street. I don't know the nearest cross street, so we'll leave it blank since it's an optional field. And then finally, we get to our remarks section. This is where we'll include a description of where the work is taking place, which is Highway 47 in the road allowance. Now that we've included all additional information, we can submit the ticket. We'll be provided with our 11-digit ticket number in the top left and the list of utility owners that are in the area. Let's do one last example for a large project ticket. This is going to be in Alberta, and we're going to say that we're grading for a new subdivision. So for type of work, we'll select groundwork. Activity, we'll select grading. The excavation method will be by a grader. For the depth, we're going about 2.5 feet again. We want to get started as soon as possible, so we'll select the next available date, which again for large projects is 5 full business days as opposed to 3 full business days. For my user reference, I'll go ahead and enter Alberta again. on our working on behalf of, we're actually going to be subcontracting for another contractor. So we'll put private and then contractor as our utility authority. This time I do have an on-site contact who's better to reach out to than myself. So we'll go ahead and enter Bill and his phone number now. We'll select our private property type, which is commercial, and the area has been pre-marked. So we'll leave it as yes. Next, we're going to go ahead and find our dig site. This time we have some GPS coordinates and they're in lat and long. We'll go ahead and enter our longitude in the longitude field, our latitude in the lat field, and search, which will bring us to an intersection in Calgary. This isn't necessarily where the work is taking place, it's just to get the map to the general area. We'll go ahead and zoom out so we can see the full scope of our work area, which is the area bounded by Stony Trail on the south, Center Street to the west, 144th Avenue to the north, and 6th Street northeast to the east. Now, this area is quite large. It actually exceeds our maximum ticket size limit. We have a large project ticket and we're inside city or town limits, which means we have 800,000 meters squared as our available work area for a single ticket. As we complete this polygon, we can see down at the bottom that our work area is actually closer to 1.5 squared kilometers, so nearly double the maximum allowed. What'll happen is when I double click to finalize this map, it'll actually disappear, which means that I'll need to submit multiple requests for this area. Now, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and break this up into halves. So for the first ticket, we'll do about the west section of the full work area and we'll draw our polygon around that shape, which will bring us just under the 800,000 squared meters that we're dealing with for this large project ticket. When I double click to finalize my map, I'll be able to move on to step 3, where I can confirm my dig site. Google automatically entered some information, but it was incorrect, so I'll go ahead and replace that now. This is actually located in Calgary, not in Balzac, so I've entered that. And in the street field, I'll enter the roadway that is adjacent to the work area. In this instance, 144th Avenue Northeast. In the nearest cross street, I'll go ahead and enter 1st Street Northeast as Center Street changes into 1st Street Northeast further down the road. In our remarks section, we'll include a physical description of the work area, which is the area between 144th Avenue, 1st Street, Stony Trail, and 6th Street Northeast. And that this is for a new subdivision, so I'll just include that note. Now, we're going to go ahead and submit this request shortly. However, it doesn't include the full scope of our work area. We've talked about how it's bounded by those 4 roads, and it's only got half of that area. Now, what we'll use is the continue ticket function, which is a way to copy your request over and quickly submit any additional work areas that you have that are part of the same project. Once we submit this ticket, we'll be provided with an 11-digit ticket number and the utility owners that cross into this area. Now let's see how quickly we can get the remaining requests done by clicking the Continue Ticket button. You can see that all the information we entered on the previous request is already entered. We'll just need to select the start date for this portion of the job, and then we can click Next. The polygon that we created for the previous request is actually displayed in gray, and your mouse will snap to it when you do your additional work area. We'll left click to trace the outline of our remaining work area, enter the confirm your dig site additional details, and in the remarks you'll notice that there's an additional comment. It says continued from 2022-200-0016. This helps the locators know that this is a continuation of that previous job or the same project in that sense. Once we've entered any additional information we have for this portion of the job, we can submit the ticket, be provided with another 11-digit ticket number, and the utility owners that fall within this portion of our work area. Now that we've made it through our project, large project, and regular tickets, let's talk about actions you can take on a ticket once they've been processed in our system. First, we have Ticket Edit, which allows you to make changes to any requests that you've already submitted. When you click this button, you'll get a pop-up asking for the reason for the edit. We'll go ahead and add an on-site contact, and we'll use Bob this time and enter his phone number accordingly. Once we get to the remarks section, you'll notice that there's an additional comment added which says Edit, adding on-site contact to let the locators know why a change is being made to this request. Once we've added or changed anything that we need to, we can go ahead and resubmit the ticket, and we'll be provided with an updated 11-digit ticket number and the utility owners that are being notified. You can also jump back to the previous ticket and see that it's been canceled or replaced by the new ticket number. Jumping into our next example, we can do a ticket cancellation. Clicking this button will give us another pop-up box asking for the reason for cancellation. If the job's been canceled by the customer, you're no longer doing the work due to the weather, etc., you can enter that information and click Send Cancellation. The next option we have is Resend PDF. This is how you can resend a copy of the confirmation email to yourself if you've ever deleted it or filed it incorrectly in error. Next, we have Continue Ticket, which can be done on existing tickets. You don't necessarily need to use Continue Ticket immediately after processing the request. If the job gets extended after you've already submitted the first locate, you can come back into your ticket and continue it at a later date. The next option is Relocate Ticket, which allows you to resubmit any requests that are nearing expiry or where the markings have been wiped out by either rain, snow, or perhaps somebody removing the flags in error. When you process a relocate, you won't be able to change anything related to the excavation itself. So the type of work, how the work will be completed, the depth, or where the work is being done. You also won't be able to change the mapped area because again, this is supposed to be a resubmission of an existing request where the work was not completed in the time frame, or again, if those markings were wiped out. Once you resubmit the ticket, you'll receive responses again in 3 full business days. The next option we have is Print View, which puts the ticket into a printable format. If you need a copy for your records, this is how you can get it. Next, we have Positive Response, which we'll come back to in just a little while, and first we'll talk about New Search. This brings you to the ticket history. This can also be accessed by clicking the History button at your homepage. This allows you to search through any of your requests, either by ticket number, your user reference, your submission date, the town or city they fall within, or even by ticket type. I'll go ahead and use some of the user references we put on the examples earlier today, AB, and if we search for that, we'll find every ticket we've ever used AB as a user reference on. Same thing for SK if we're looking for our Saskatchewan tickets. Next, we'll jump back to our homepage and we'll take a look at how you can pre-build your tickets. And this is done by clicking the settings up in the top right. If you're someone who finds you always do the same type of work or are always using the same excavation method, or you only do work for homeowners, this is how you can have that information automatically enter on your tickets. If you go into a new ticket, you'll notice that all of that information in my settings is already saved in here. However, you can change these fields if you're working on a one-off type of job. For example, if you're not doing fencing and augering, you can make those changes at this time. The last thing we'll talk about today is Positive Response. This was a ticket option, however, you can also access it at the bottom of the console page. This will show you a list of your outstanding tickets where you can open them up and follow up with any utility owners you haven't heard from. Once you've opened up the ticket, you'll see the drawn area as well as the list of utility owners that were notified. If you haven't received a response after the 3 full business days, you'll want to select the check mark next to them and click the Send Reminders button up in the top right-hand corner. This will send an email to the member letting them know that they have not responded to your request within the designated time frame. Reminders can be submitted once a day. However, if you ever send a second, third, fourth, or greater no response or reminder, please also follow up with a phone call or email to our contact center so we can escalate the process as well. The utility owners don't let us know when they're responding to your request, so we have no way of knowing if you're dealing with these issues unless you contact us. In the future, members will also upload their responses to Positive Response once they have activated themselves in our system. This marks the end of our Before You Dig Partners webinar presentation. Thank you for attending, and remember to always dig safe.